Okay, well, it looks like everybody's got their food and everybody's sitting down, or almost everybody. So I thought we'd get started. Again, my name is Brian Kolstad, and I teach graphic design, among other things, over at Lewis Clark State College. And so it's been a treat for me to get involved with the Lewis Clark Valley Ad Federation, or like as we call it, Ad Club. Chuck actually kind of wrangled me into the group, and I'm not sure if I'm happy about that or not, but ultimately it's been great. And so this year, like I said, I'm the president, so I get to do the introductions and that kind of stuff. But today, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be introducing John Toth, who has been with Chuck since 1997 and has obviously some good insights into what really goes on at Advantage Advertising and what goes on in Chuck's head. What John does, and I'm sure everybody kind of knows who John is, but as I understand, he's kind of a sort of a mystery to a lot of people. But he is the account and creative director at Advantage, and so he does a lot of work with strategy, and he works with clients and that kind of stuff. And I don't even know what that means, right? But I think it generates a lot of money. So strategy, right? But he's going to share some insights about Chuck and that kind of stuff. So without further bad jokes, John.
I don't have a podium, so you guys are going to have to live with seeing the notes flying around here a little bit. There's a lot of information that's pertinent to the award covered in the video. So I kind of, after reviewing everything that went on down in Boise and the nomination and the things that you're going to see in a little bit, there wasn't a lot of room to say much about the award. And I thought maybe, from my perspective, something that I could do that would be informational and entertaining would be to talk a little bit about my knowledge of Chuck and the guy and the things that went on leading up to him earning this award. Go ahead, Chris. The year was 1997. The Oriskany. I flew with Chuck, and you're all a lot like Chuck. Better and worse. He was a naturally heroic son of a bitch. We were in the worst dogfight I could dream of. Bogies were like fireflies all over the sky. Chuck was hit. He was wounded, but he could have made it back. He stayed in it, saved 3 planes before he finally bought it. Yeah, he did it right. But that's not something you hear when the battle happens across some line on a map. And that's not why we're all here, and it has very little to do with the award. But I'll tell you this, there are 2 things about that are pertinent to why we're here. The 1997 part, and the fact that he did it right. And I dig that music. The nomination and video you're going to see in a little bit has the basic information that relates to Chuck's award. But something that isn't in the video, and it's very entertaining, was a story I'll share with you now. It was 1997. Gas was $1.22 a gallon. Movie tickets were $4.50. And Men in Black was in the theaters. Men in Black 1. I joined Advantage Advertising. The idea was I would take on some of the existing accounts and pitch new, bigger clients and grow the agency to a level Chuck was sure Advantage was capable of handling. And it wasn't too long after joining that we went after one of Chuck's coveted targets. It was First Bank. They're at the time a publicly traded company on the New York Stock Exchange. Inland Northwest Bank, multiple branches. Chuck had approached them a few years earlier, and they had basically told him to come back when he grew up. At the time, they were handled by a well-respected agency, Hannah out of Coeur d'Alene. Did great work, but we were sure we could get them. This was the first real presentation I had been in with Chuck and the Advantage crew since joining the agency. Prior to this, I was working at a corporate bank in Seattle, and I'd given presentations my job was to give presentations to the board of the directors. Boardroom full of suits wasn't new to me. The presentation team consisted of Chuck and myself and Darren Hayes at the time. We walk into the room, and there's probably 15 First Bank employees, senior vice presidents, CEO, CFO, that kind of thing, and their complete board of directors. And the logistics of it is we get pushed to the back of the room, farthest from the door, and myself, Darren Hayes 3 feet from me, Chuck 3 feet to his left. Game plan was we were going to do pretty much a scripted presentation. Chuck was going to start with 5 minutes of a log cabin story about Advantage, our past, and what brought us to this point. And after that 5-minute pitch, he was going to hand off to me. I was going to speak a little more. Darren was going to do the creative, and I was going to wrap up. So Chuck starts, and he's got a little bit of a frog in his throat. He says maybe 5-10 seconds worth of something that's barely audible. Grabs a cup of water, clears his throat, starts again. Maybe 10 more seconds, clears his throat. He's clearly struggling. This goes on for maybe 20, 30 seconds where he can't bring his voice up. I'm looking past Darren Hayes to Chuck, and Darren is turning progressively whiter as this goes on. About 45 seconds, Chuck takes his last little sip of water, clears his throat, and says, "You told me to come back after I'd grown up a little. Well, since then, some things have changed and some things are different." And what happens is that cool TV effect, Dallas can help me on this, but my focus goes from Chuck to Darren. Darren comes into view. He goes from white to green, and he looks at the floor. Chuck's done at 45 seconds instead of 5 minutes. Darren's looking at the floor. I look at this board, and they're looking at Chuck like, is that like really, really clever, or did you just completely mess up the pitch? I smile and I look down at the papers on my desk, and I think, okay, this one's going to go rough. Anyway, we continue with the pitch. Everybody gets stabilized, things get back on their feet, and we end up getting the account. The punchline is that since then, things have changed and things are different. Since then, Chuck has sat on numerous boards, headed the chamber, spoke to groups of 300 people in Boise. He's been involved in countless committees, gone and lectured at the University of Idaho. The agency has grown. It's been almost a complete transformation in terms of the size of the agency, the type of clients we handle, and what Chuck has done in terms of reaching out to the community. And I tell you that to tell you this. The job we do, both Chuck and I have the same kind of job at Advantage. We direct accounts, we come up with the creative, and so I think I have a unique perspective as to what kind of things Chuck is up to and these additional responsibilities that he takes on that have led to this award. And keep in mind that while he's doing the job at Advantage, at directing accounts and that kind of thing, he's also been out doing these additional responsibilities with the Idaho Ad Federation, with the schools, with the chamber, that you're going to hear plenty about in the nomination video. But to help you get a little bit of an insight onto the nature of the job, there's a great metaphor that I'll read to you now about the idea of agency work, directing accounts, and creative. And keep in mind, Chuck's been up to this for decades now. But this is a good description of the job from a man's point of view. So you see an attractive girl at a party. You approach them and say, "Hi, I'm fantastic in bed." That's direct marketing. You're at a party with a bunch of friends and you see a great-looking girl. You have one of your friends approach them, point to you and say, "He's fantastic in bed." That's advertising. You see a great girl at a party, you approach them, you get their phone number, and the next day you call and say, "Hi, I'm fantastic in bed." That's telemarketing. You're at a party and you see an attractive girl, you get up, straighten your clothes, walk up, pour her a drink, open the door, pick up her bag after she drops it, offer her a ride, and then you say, "By the way, I'm fantastic in bed." That's public relations. You're at a party and you see a gorgeous woman, she walks up to you and says, "I hear you're fantastic in bed." That's brand recognition. And in the end, that's our holy grail. And we spend a lot of time thinking about the strategies and the concepts that best accomplish this for our clients. It's not easy. We do it day in and day out, year-round, over and over. And to that point, it was Henry Ford that said, "Thinking is the hardest work there is," which is probably the reason so few engage in it. We're doing this all the time for our clients. Chuck stacks on top of that the committees, the boards, the travel to speak to classes, the Idaho Ad Federation trips down to Boise. It's a monumental undertaking, and he's been doing it for decades. But you'll hear all the details about that in the video, so I won't go into more details. But more importantly than all those things, and I think that's really noteworthy and something that we can all relate to, is not what Chuck has done, but really how he's done it. The nature of the guy and how he's done these things while he's been building this impressive resume. One last short flashback to illustrate my point. Shortly after the first bank pitch I told you about, which has gone down in advantage lower, the line, we're in another client pitch, Chuck and I. And in this case, room description is important. Because of a small office, I'm sitting at a desk alongside a client. A woman around 50 is alongside me at the table. Across from her is a mid to late 50s woman and a gentleman in his late 70s. Those two are the family that owns the business we were pitching. The gal next to me was the manager. Chuck is across from me as well, but slightly behind the gal in her mid to late 50s and the older gentleman. I begin the presentation. Things are going great. Then I noticed that when I look to the clients to make eye contact, I glance at Chuck, and he's looking away, down and away, and he's red-faced. And at one point I see that he's looking out into the lobby that's adjacent to the room. There's a UPS man out there dropping something off, but it's nothing out of the ordinary. So I keep going, and the pitch goes on for another 20 minutes. But each time I look up, Chuck's face is redder. His eyes are watering, and he's clearly hiding his face. And I'm starting to get mad because he's not contributing anything to the pitch. And they can't see him, and the gal next to me, because she's blocked by the other two people, can't see him, but I can. And to be fair, I didn't expect him to say a lot after what I saw in the first bank pitch, but I didn't expect him to be back there cracking up and literally crying. I mean, tears were coming out of his eyes. Anyway, we wrap up the pitch and thank everybody, and we walk out the door, and the second we're a minimum safe distance from the door, at the same time, we both look to each other and say, "What the bleep was that all about?" And he's saying it to me too, and I'm at a loss for words. I'm upset, and I'm wanting to find out what was going on. And it turns out, and it's true after looking back, the older gentleman had a hearing aid, and it was doing the feedback thing. And every time it would do the noise, the gentleman would reach up to his ear and adjust the volume. And evidently, and it's true, looking back, I was reaching up to my ear at the same time. And but I would keep talking. I'd reach up to my ear. Well, Chuck couldn't take it because he thought I was doing it on purpose to make him laugh. And I had no idea. And just to totally top it off and make matters worse, after about the third time I did the ear grab, I was making a point to the clients to illustrate something. I said, blah, 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 and it's even something. I was talking to the older lady, mid-50s, across the table. I said, it's even something your father would like. She quickly said, that's my husband. Chuck, he peed his pants at that point. And to me, and probably many of you that know Chuck well, that's classic Chuck. And the point is, and it's a quote I've known for a while from Lord Byron that I really like, applies here. All who joy would win must share it. Happiness was born a twin. Chuck loves to laugh, but I think more than anything, he loves to make other people laugh. Yes, Chuck has done a lot in his career, on the job and in the community, but how he's accomplished this and all that was necessary to be recognized with this award is even more impressive. He's done it with a smile and while seeking a smile from others. That's it.
I guess I'm supposed to come up here. As you can see by the video, and I had some people in the stands behind me after I sat back down or in the seats, and they said, well, for being in advertising, he's not that good of a public speaker. And glad to be here to prove that today. This brings a new understanding of being grateful and overwhelmed. Because I think a lot of times you say thanks and people say congratulations, and there's a lot of things in your life where that occurs. And this one is like, I've felt that like I've never felt that before, and it's been a huge honor, and I'm extremely grateful. This is a great opportunity to give thanks to people, in specific. Frank Bernil, obvious, that's obvious in the video. We also have from the University of Idaho, and I'd like to introduce him, is Mark Seacrest, who is my major professor in college. He was the advisor for the ad team. He did that up until just a couple of years ago. He still teaches there. Kenton Bird is the director of the School of Journalism and Mass Media. Kenton was a reporter at the Moscow Pullman Daily News, which was the Idahonian back then when I did my internship. So I think that's where I first met him, and then it's been great to have a professional relationship with him and the school since then. So, and then the rest of this, I kind of categorized it into 3 areas, or excuse me, maybe 5 or 6 if you got the time. First off is family, and I will tell you that when I saw that video, the first point that I watered up and became emotional about it was seeing my kids in there because, well, I'm proud of them and everything like that, but to get them all awake at the same time of day, that was amazing. It was good to see Mike Kirby in there, who is my first cousin's son. He's successful in the business in Boise, and I used to throw him around like a sack of flour at family reunions. It's great to be in the business with him. And I showed my video to my parents, who are 86. My dad's 86, mom's 84. And, some of the stuff in there I didn't know if they really wanted to hear or not, but they watched the video and got done, and they didn't say anything during the video, and they said, well, that was very nice. And I said, well, that's good. And they said, who is the guy that talks so long? I said, well, that's Mark Bowen, the old radio guy, friend of mine. I brought him to the house and introduced him to you a few years ago. And they went, oh, yeah. And I said, he quit drinking for almost a year now. And they went, oh, okay. And about that time, my mom said, well, he was a lot friendlier when he drank. And my dad chimed right in with, and funnier too. But in all seriousness, I'm really proud of Mark and Betsy, their sobriety and their new start in Boise. Really glad to see that happen for them. The next is our media and production partners, and it's great to see some of them here. You saw some of them in the video, and as an agency, I've always felt like we have a very trusted, sacred role in that we represent those people to our clients, we represent our clients to those people, and that's something that we take really seriously. We try to be fair and honest day in and day out, because we're in our role because both sides place our trust to be in the middle, and I appreciate that very much. Mike Ripley's here, former silver medal winner. Quick story about Mike. When I first got started with Frank, I was still wearing the little Bernil shirt that said Chuck over here, and they made me haul tires everywhere. And they finally got me down to Lewis, and they started me out in Moscow for a month or two, and I had my first radio recording session, and Mike had taken over the Bernil account since they had left a previous agency, and he was kind of managing it. And I was all about exerting my authority and my talent and the fact that I was in control of the Bernil message. Dan Walker was at Clue in production at the same time, very similar situation. But Frank and I went out in different rigs to Cozy for a production session. And immediately I had to rewrite Mike's scripts, made them worse, undoubtedly, but I had to get my stink on them. And we stumbled through that session, and if all of you know Mike, he was great about it because he's great with change. But we got through the session, and Frank took off, and I took off, and by the time I got back to the session, to the office, and Mike doesn't remember this, he had called Frank and said, "Frank, I don't think this kid's going to work out." Which at the time was pretty good advice, but I'm lucky I learned on the job. Turnbow's story, very true. That's exactly how it happened. And I see Dallas and Bobby here, and Dan. Same thing. Great people that we work with. In between them and the client, and we appreciate everything you do. The Nellies, same thing, very much. The next area is clients, and without clients, none of this would be happening, obviously, and we're fortunate to have clients that let us do great work so that we can be recognized within our industry, and they also play a pretty significant role in paying the bills, and we appreciate that as well. I want to talk really quick about the ad club people. Scott Trotter was in there, and part of this video and part of the nomination materials said that I founded the Lewis Clark Advertising Federation, and that's not exactly correct. Scott was instrumental in it. He was working for me at the time. He became aware of the ad club in Boise, went down to the awards when we had won our first award, talked to Tim Pace, and came back and said, "We need to start an ad club." So I joined with him, Phil Shin from the Money Saver, Rob Minervini from the Tribune, Helen Workington from KCLK, and I believe Fred Fickenworth from Clue at the time, and the group of us, formed the ad club. Yeah. And Tim Pace, you hear a lot of stories about Tim, even if you don't know him. He's infamous around the state. No need to go into those stories today, but what you should know is this guy, without this guy, obviously, because of the Trotter story, there wouldn't be a Lewis Clark Valley Advertising Federation. There wouldn't be an Idaho Advertising Federation because he's kept that going. And the Boise Advertising Federation has had their rough spots over the years, and he, as a former leader of that club in the background, has made sure they kept going and has kept us all on track. And he's a great benefactor to ad clubs all over the Northwest. So it's good that we recognize him. And then today, we have people like Brian Kolstad and Kelsey Grafton who have led our club to new and greater heights. And I take Tim's advice and role to stand in the background and lead from behind if necessary, but stay out of the way because they've done some really great things that we never could have done when I was in charge. Michelle, same thing. She's right in the middle. She was president. She knows how that works. I think she's been secretary treasurer for like 10 years now. Are they going to let you out finally? Finally, and probably most important, again, to get to this stage is the people that work at Advantage. And the former people like Scott Trotter and Darren Hayes and Jeff Marshall, who are in the video, great times. They very much made the company what it is today, and at the time got us to the point to move on. And I'm very happy to see them all go on to bigger and better things in different careers after they left Advantage. I'm more proud of them than I am the people that left to start their own shop. The current staff and for quite a while, it's been really easy to say honestly that, people say, do you work with clients? Do you do creative? Do you keep the books? Do you do HR kind of things? And for quite a while, I've said the best thing I do is hire people to do all of that stuff better than I ever did. And that is truly the case at Advantage right now. As you've seen with JT up here talking and some of the rest of our people here, we've got, I think, an average of 10 years experience per person there. It's up to 90 if you factor me in, but just with them, it's 10. And they're there because they're very good at what they do. And our clients are there because they're very good at what they do. And I appreciate them immensely. I wanted to say my girlfriend Mindy, too, she sat through the Rockies and saw Mark's presentation, and after the Rockies, she said that she would like to still meet him, which I was kind of surprised. She did say it was in a dark alley, but with that, I tell you what, I cannot explain, I cannot give a full description to how grateful this has made me feel, and I appreciate it very much. And as far as Advantage and everything goes, this kind of thing is like a Tom Sawyer experience. You're seeing your own funeral, and it makes you feel old. And I didn't think I was really there yet, but we got some old pictures out from a Christmas party about 8 years ago, and I realized I am there. But truly, we have, as an organization, some great things happening, and some of the best is yet to come. So thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Brian left, and he left no notes or instructions. Chuck is available for photographs and autographs. Other than that, if we had any business, we can bring it up now. Otherwise, everybody can get back to work. No? All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Congratulations, Chuck.